So this is what you'll see when you log in as a teacher. The speaking button is here. And just before I click on it, I want to give you an idea of what speaking is in a nutshell before I start. Effectively, there are 4 parts to it, or you can think of it as having 4 parts. The first part is that you as the teacher choose or create a prompt or a stimulus, which is a question. And you're going to choose a question for your students to answer. The second part is that once you've assigned that question to your students and any suggested videos, which I'll explain in a moment, your student will then record a response to that prompt. The third part is that once you get the recording back from your student, which will pop up on your feed, you select the grading criteria and grade those responses and give feedback should you want to. And that can be done both with text as well as audio. And the final part, therefore, is that the students would then see your grading and your feedback. So that's speaking in a nutshell. So I'll now go through that in a bit more detail. So part 1, we click on speaking and we're going to choose a question prompt or create our own. I'm doing this in French, but don't worry, those of you who are Spanish teachers or German teachers, Italian teachers, etc. This applies across all languages, and I'll make sure I don't speak any French. I'll speak in English when it comes to the actual recording part. As I said, the first thing is you can either choose a question from our prompts or create your own. I'll show you how to create your own question first. And this is also always very useful if you've been teaching something specific in class and you want to answer a question about what you've been teaching in class that day. You click on add a new question, and here you can ask your question. So you might want to say something like, est-ce que les amis sont importants? Okay, so you type your question and you click add that as a new question. And then when you go to your questions bank, you'll see, this is one I did earlier, but here's my one I just written, est-ce que les amis sont importants? So then you can go ahead and select that as your prompt, okay? But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to choose a prompt from our already existing library of prompts. Now, those of you who already use thisislanguage.com will be familiar with our themes and tags, all of which are aligned to the various curricula that you'll be using. So if you could scroll down, you can select any of these you want. I'm going to choose a simple one. I'm going to choose the tag your friends. Actually, I'll choose your family. And here are the questions which you can select as prompts. So this first one here, parle-moi un peu de ta famille, means tell me a little bit about your family. I'm going to choose that one. So I click on the question and then it pops up with this page here. We worked really hard and in close collaboration with lots of teachers as we were building the speaking module. And what we found is that teachers wanted to make sure that the speaking was tied into context, real context and authentic language. So here you can optionally select up to 3 videos for your students to watch as example answer videos or inspirational videos before they give their own response. So I might choose this video, this one and this one here. If you want to preview those videos before you select them, you can just click play and it will open up in a new tab. So I've chosen 2 additional videos which I want my students to watch before they answer this prompt question here. I then click assign. And then it says you can choose the class you're going to assign it to. So I'm going to assign it to my Year 10 French class. Here you have the videos which we've selected. You then have the option of the maximum length of the student response. So this puts a limit on how long they can speak for. So there's 20 seconds, 40 seconds, or 60 seconds. I'm going to choose a 40-second response as the maximum time. And here you have the start date and the due date as you would have for all the other activities on thisislanguage.com. You click save. And that's it, basically. That's the first part done. You have now assigned a prompt or a stimulus to your students to give a recorded answer. A quick thing to mention, speaking, we've got beta up here. We're still in beta, or we launched it in beta, only in the sense that we know that you're going to be using this and providing us with some wonderful feedback. And we know that in the next raft of changes, we'll be making changes to it. So we wanted to make sure that you know that this is a beta launch, all ready to go, perfectly wonderful to use, but we know there are going to be some changes we make based on your feedback. So please do let us know. I'm now going to log in. I'm going to log out as this teacher, and I'm going to log in as a student in that class. So if you imagine this is your student now logging in. Okay, so hold on, let me close that one off. Sorry, that's one I just did earlier. So the student now logs in, and they can see in their feed that they have got a speaking assignment, which you have assigned them. Parle-moi un peu de ta famille. And they can now go to task. You will be asked to record a response to the following question. Your response should be no more than 40 seconds long. That was the length of time we allowed them to talk for. So, parle-moi un peu de ta famille. The student clicks next. Watch these responses for inspiration. So there are two videos which we chose, if you remember. There's the transcript, which the student will hopefully find useful if they want to select bits of vocabulary or structures which they might want to use in their own recording. So they could, and obviously watch.
Alors, on est une famille de 5 personnes.
Hopefully, can you all hear that through the system audio and team? Yep, that all seems to work. So, thank you. Yeah. So they can watch a second video. Again, the transcript would be there. And then they click next. And finally, we get to this page here, which is what we like to call the student studio. Effectively, it's the recording studio. A number of things to note here. There's the question prompt right in the middle, very nice and clear. The question is being asked by this girl here. So this is Karija Touré, famous French actress at the moment. We've got a whole series of random cultural icons in the language that you're studying, who will pop up and, as it were, ask the question to make it a bit fun and relevant for the students, and perhaps to provoke some classroom discussion about who they are and what they starred in or sang or that kind of thing, or wrote maybe. And here you have the recording interface. When they click start recording, you'll see that the timer starts counting down. It starts going like this, and the little pink border of the recording studio starts going red, which shows that we're live. This is recording, and the student's voice is being recorded. So if I now click stop, it'll go back. It's no longer recording. I can click play to listen to my response as a student. Recording, you'll see that the timer starts counting down. It starts going like this, and the little pink border of the recording studio starts. So as a student, I'm listening back to my recording. I can fast forward and go, okay, yeah, I want to listen to later. Student's voice is being recorded. Starts counting down, and pause, etc. I may decide I want to re-record that. So I'll make a re-recording and give a kind of answer that a student might give, and I'll give the answer in English for those of you who don't speak or teach French. So click start. In my family, there are 4 people: my mum, my dad, and my sister. And we also have a small dog called Wopsy. Okay, so I've made the recording. I've listened through it. In my family, there are 4 people: my mum, my dad, and my sister. And we also have a small dog called Wopsy. Yes, I don't have a small dog called Wopsy, for those of you interested. They can keep on re-recording until they're happy and confident with their answer, and then they click submit. At the point at which they click submit, the student has now submitted, their speaking assignment back to you. They get a congratulatory message, there's some confetti animation, and they now effectively are sort of done. And when they go back to their homepage, it will see waiting for the teacher to grade. So they're waiting for you to grade that response. I'm now going to log out as the student and I will log back in as my fake teacher. Okay, so here I can see that one student has recorded it out of my 10 in my class. I haven't checked any responses yet. That's because I'm about to do that now. So I'm going to click on listen to responses. Okay, so here we are. If I scroll down, you can see that Matt Money, who's my student, is green tick, completed on time. They completed their recording. Those of you who use the site will be familiar with this interface for other assignments, obviously. But the big difference here is that it hasn't got a score, no points, spent 4 minutes on it, and it says grade here. Now, before you grade this piece of work or any of the recordings that your students will send back to you, you're going to want to check out the grading criteria to make sure it's aligned with what you want to be, how you want to be grading. And at this stage, I'm going to hand over to my co-founder, Anna Wainwright.
Thank you, George. If you don't mind doing some clicking for me still, that would be great.
No problems.
So I'm going to take you through the grading portion of the speaking feature. Because we know that you'll be assigning speaking tasks to a whole range of students and classes of different ages and abilities, we want you to have maximum control and flexibility when it comes to how marks are allocated. And that's why we've made it possible for you to adjust the grading criteria for each speaking task before you start listening to the responses. So to get started, just click on the blue Show Grading Criteria button, which is at the top there. Thank you. And here you can see the 4 criteria that you can choose from. And if you hover over the little eye icon next to each one, you'll see a brief suggested summary of what each one entails. So for communication and content, we're looking to see to what extent does the response provide an informative, comprehensible answer to the question? And also, is the response an appropriate length? For range of language, we're looking at the extent to which the response includes varied vocab and structures. For accuracy, to what extent are grammar and constructions used correctly in the response? And then finally, for pronunciation and intonation, to what extent does the response include accurate pronunciation and natural intonation? And it's really important to say here that these are just our suggested definitions. So they're there for you to use as a guide, but you can obviously interpret and apply them however you like. Provided that your students understand what you're looking for under each criteria at each stage, you can use them however suits your teaching best. So by toggling these criteria on and off, you can decide what you will and won't be listening for when you're grading. So, for example, if your main focus is on whether or not your students were able to sustain communication in their response to provide enough language, you might decide that on this particular occasion, you're not going to grade for pronunciation, in which case you can just toggle it off like this. Similarly, or alternatively, if you've been using your lesson time with your classes to work on narrating events and making sure that they know how to reference the past and the present and the future in their speaking, you might choose to grade only for range of language and accuracy this time round. So you might decide to toggle off communication and content. If you wanted to, you could set a speaking task and only grade on pronunciation and intonation if that's what suits your particular needs at that time. You're free to toggle however you like. For the purposes of this demonstration, let's assume that you'll be including all 4 criteria so that we can show you how that looks. Thank you, George. The next thing that you need to do once you've decided which criteria you're going to use is decide how many marks to allocate to each of the criteria. And you do that by changing the number in the box just underneath the criteria. So you're free to choose any number you like as suits your particular sort of schematic. But for these purposes, let's allocate 10 marks to each of the criteria. Once you've done that, you are ready to go. So we can hide those criteria just to tidy up the page a little bit. And now we can start grading. So we're going to go down to Matt's response, and we're going to click the blue grade button on the right-hand side. And you can see here that at the top you have the recording itself ready to play. Below it, you have the grading criteria that you've chosen already populated. You can see that the total is out of 40. So that's because we chose to allocate 10 marks to each of the criteria. And we're ready to go. So to begin with, we're going to click play and have a listen to Matt's response.
Start. In my family, there are 4 people, my mum, my dad, and my sister. And we also have a small dog called Wopsy.
So once we've listened to the response, we are ready to start grading. We'll work our way through the criteria and decide what we think is appropriate. So I think we're going to give Matt 5 out of 10 for communication and content because it was a good answer, but it was a bit short. I think range of language will give him a 6. Accuracy, it was pretty accurate. It was good English, so we'll say 9, shall we, for accuracy. And then pronunciation and intonation was very nice, so we'll say 10 out of 10 for pronunciation and intonation. So you can see then once you've used the sliding scales to mark the criteria, then the total and the percentage score are automatically calculated for you. And now, and perhaps most importantly, you can leave the students some feedback. So we've given you the ability to leave both a text comment and also an audio comment. So in the text comment, you might like to put, well done, Matt, but try a longer response next time. This is great having someone to type for me. And then there's the option to leave an audio comment. And an audio comment you might find particularly useful for modeling any language that your student had difficulty with, for showing them the correct pronunciation of words they struggled with, or just to help improve their listening, generally speaking. So George, you can go ahead and leave Matt a comment.
Well done, Matt, but try a longer response next time.
So once you've recorded your comment, you can listen to it back, you can re-record it.
Well done, Matt, but try a longer response next time.
If you like, you can delete it. There's a little delete button there on the right-hand side, or you can re-record it. Once you're happy with the marks and also with the feedback, you can click submit, and the marks and feedback will be sent directly to the student for them to view. And I think just before I hand back to George and we leave this page, there's one more thing I'd like to mention. Once you've given your students feedback, you can also give us feedback. So you see the blue box here on this grading page allows you to leave feedback for us on your experiences with the speaking module so far. As George said, we are in beta and we're really looking forward to receiving your feedback, so that we can make changes and improvements to help give you exactly what you need. So please do let us know anything that pops into your head along the way. And now I'm going to hand back to George to show you what the feedback looks like from the student end.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. So we've graded Matt Monies. We assume you've managed to grade the other students as well. Just to quickly show you what it looks like from the student perspective, I log back in as Matt. So once the students, once you've graded a student's work, they will see this in their feed. So I guess one of the important things to note is, as well as having all the communication and content, etc., the grading criteria, they'll get the score, the points, any text comment that you might have made, plus an audio comment. We do obviously take student data, student privacy really, really seriously, which is why all of our audio files will be encrypted in transit, which means that you just need to, or the student will just need to click before they can actually play it, so we can decrypt the audio. And this allows them then to play their own audio. In my family, there are, which we know about, Wopsy, and we can also listen to the teacher's feedback. Well done, Matt, but try a longer response next time. Okay, so that way they've done the work. You've you've assigned them a prompt. They've given a response. You've managed to set the grading criteria and allocate grading points to them. And then you can submit additional feedback both as text and as audio, and the student is then able to take that on board and hopefully improve their audio for next time.